talk about the actual process itself. And in step 2, you say stack the process. Now, I live in Las Vegas, and so I'm all about stacking things in my favor. What do you mean by that? What's stack the process?
Yeah, so stacking the processes is, in an enterprise deal, there are a number of stakeholders, right? You usually start out with a user team, and they get really excited about your product. And quite honestly, sometimes the user team doesn't even really understand what I would call the procurement process from the enterprise side. Mm-hmm. But it really kind of has 4 distinct buckets, and that would be the user team and getting the user team excited about your product. Then the user team typically pulls in procurement, and procurement is really interested in things that are more what I would call deal specific, things like how many users and how much storage or whatever the license parameters might be. And of course, price, right? Like that's the big one for procurement. And so and then there's typically the security risk team, right? They want to go and look at your tool and make sure that the risk is minimized as much as possible. And then you get to legal. So instead of going through each of those processes, we really encourage our sellers to stack them as much as possible. So obviously, you're not going to go to the user team and say, let's get procurement involved on day 1. But when you start to feel like this is going beyond just kind of like a casual date and it's getting a little bit more serious, then you can say, hey, what does the rest of the process consist of? Can we get those things kicked off? And the legal and the risk assessment, those parts of the process tend to be the longer parts of the process. So if you can get them going in tandem, then you're reducing the entire redlining cycle or the entire selling cycle, if you will. So that's the goal. Yeah, sometimes you're going to have a hard time getting a buyer to cooperate with you, but to the degree that you can trigger those processes, it's best to do it as early as possible.
I agree. And one of the practical, tactical things that you and I both know is that, look, legal have got 100 competing priorities. They're not going to want to get involved until they know the business has made a decision that they want to move forward, right? But notwithstanding, it sort of comes back to great enterprise and complex sales process where you want to be connected to a great executive sponsor on the customer side such that they can decide, they can make the call early and say, hey, legal, procurement, now's the time, right? Yes. I want you involved. And if you just work with the user team without executive sponsorship, it's going to be much harder because they don't have the internal clout to get those resources, right?
Yep.
Yeah.